election day. The campaign is over. She's here to talk about it. Good afternoon, good morning, whatever you might be looking, viewing from Georgia.
Hey, are we excited?
I'm telling you.
Excited in Virginia Beach. Woohoo!
Yeah.
Right. Okay, now that the campaign is over, the real work begins.
Yeah.
A lot of times people say, well, if I vote, that's it. No. When you vote, that is simply the beginning. We want to thank everybody who took time out, who exercised their right to vote and went to the polls on Tuesday to tell people who they want elected for office. Now, with anything else, you don't win them all. But the good news here in Virginia Beach, we have a district system, system, which is totally different than what Virginia Beach has ever had in its history. We've always had a hybrid system. That means in some races, you absolutely had to live in a district, but you still had to run in the entire city. So that made it extremely difficult for persons who may have been not as wealthy as someone else trying to run in a city of 500,000 people. But now that we have district voting, you run in a district of all of 48,000 people, 36,000 of which are voting age population. Makes a big difference. Again, this is Georgia Allen coming to you live on every Thursday at 12 noon with GA for Justice. And as always, we are a conversation. We always have a conversation for information. We have a conversation for correction and also a conversation for transformation. And what we have done over the last year is to try to inform the public, not just about elections, but about economics, about housing, about justice. And a lot of times we try to always use the 7 principles of Kwanzaa because we kind of live by that mantra, the mantra of unity, the mantra of self-determination, the mantra of collective work and responsibility. We live by those mantras of faith, creativity. All of those things helps us to be stronger as a community and stronger as a nation. It is critically important that you have a foundation because without a strong foundation, you're definitely going to fall. And so over the last year, we have tried to focus and educate and get our people in the mindset of recognizing that whether it's an election or anything else in your community, you cannot look at it as one and done. You must look at it from a standpoint is one, elections is the first step, it is one of the first steps in the process. Of course, running for office is the biggest step, but as a citizen, going to the polls and voting is a major step in that process. If you work on a campaign, that's another major step in the process. If you make phone calls on behalf of candidates, that's a major step in the process. If you educate yourself about all of the candidates who are in a race, that is a step in the process. So we don't want you to think that once you vote, that the process is ended, that this is over. It is simply the beginning. The real work begins right now. Most people should know who have won the elections. I know now that there's a lot of absentee ballots, there's provisional ballots, there's late voting ballots. And when I say late voting, that means it came in by the deadline, but it hasn't been counted yet. And so therefore, a lot of times you don't get your results immediately following or the night of election day. So don't let that worry you, because as a former election official, we stay there and we count the ballots until they're all counted. But we also have a verification process. It's not just the ballot alone, it's what it says in the machine, but it also is what it says on paper, and they must match up. So with that being said, I trust that most of you did go to the polls and vote. I trust that many of you are satisfied with the outcome, but whether you are or not, whether the candidate that won the election is the candidate that you voted for, it doesn't matter. And when I say it doesn't matter from a standpoint of that person in your district is responsible for representing you, representing your interests, representing your family, representing your community, representing your neighborhoods. They are still responsible for doing that. So I want to encourage you first and foremost to make sure that you get your posse together. And if there are areas in your community that you're concerned about, maybe there's a crime issue in your community. But maybe the reason why there's a crime issue is because there's a lot of empty buildings in your community. Well, they asked for the job. Now make them do their job. They want the job. They ran for office. They want to work in the community. Put them to work. So the real work begins now. You know who your elected officials are? Pick up the phone. Tell them, okay, we have these buildings in our community, in our neighborhood, and they've been vacant for quite some time. What do you have that financially that you can work with those of us in the community who have been here working day in and day out, trying to make a difference in our community? Where's the funds? Where's the money? Show us the money, because guess what? You asked for it, and now you're going to have to pay the piper, because guess what? We're the piper.
Hello.
We are the citizens. We are the piper. So I want you to think about yourself differently. We have been thinking that they're the power and we'll just get whatever. No. I have been working over the last year to help our people to think differently, to think about power from a different standpoint, to not think about power from the standpoint that the congressperson has the power, or the city council member, or the mayor, they have the power. No, you, the citizen, along with your advocates, the people that you collaborate with, you are the power. And your job is to leverage that power. Your job is to make sure that they know what you want in your community, and you pressure them and push them and leverage it until you get what you want. So, with that being said, there have been a number of changes, and we're excited about many of them. And in the city of Virginia Beach, again, as I shared with you at the early part of the program, we changed our election system here in the city of Virginia Beach. We're now able to elect persons on a district by district basis. And what that means is we literally have an elected official that we can go to and talk with them directly with regards to our community and our neighborhood. And why is that important? When you have a city that is elected at large, and all of the council members were elected at large, even though they considered themselves district representative, they looked at it from the standpoint, well, we get votes from all over the city. Well, we're elected by everybody in the city. So we can't necessarily be concerned about you. We got to be concerned about everybody. Yeah, that's true. And we still expect our district representative to be concerned about everybody. But we expect you to first and foremost be concerned about the district that put you in office.
That's right.
We want you to be concerned about District 1 or District 10 or District 7 or District 9. If you were elected from that district, we want to go to you and we want to let you know what our concerns are. We want to make sure that you are working on our behalf. Now, do you have to collaborate? Yes. And you had to collaborate before. The difference is you're sitting on city council, you're getting elected by the whole entire city, and your issue may be, I want this contractor to get the bid, or I want this particular item, capital improvement project item to get passed. And so I'm sitting here and I want that capital improvement project to pass and get implemented. And I'm over here, I'm close to the town center. Well, the guys down on the ocean front, they might have a capital improvement project that they want to get passed for that ocean front. So what do? We have to negotiate and collaborate. Well, being in a district is no different. You're still going to have to cooperate. You're still going to have to collaborate. But now you have a little bit more leverage because you're not bound by all of these big businesses and other groups that are pushing the buttons to make sure that a certain group of people stay in line. Because guess what? They no longer have all of those members on city council. The developers don't have all of the 6 members that they needed or the 7 members that they needed to pass anything, because there is now a group of people on city council who are from various places in the community, who have various backgrounds, whether it's a background in sociology and psychology or background in a small business owner. They're new people, whether it's a college professor or whether it's an attorney who does small business law instead of these working on behalf of major businesses. You now have a different group, a different dynamic now serving on our city council. So I'm looking for you to begin to pick up the phone and call your representative. So I'm going to ask you a few questions. Do you know who your elected official is? Well, if you don't, I need you to get busy. I need you to talk to your local church and say, hey, can you, pastor, bring in some of these city council members and let's begin, because all of us in this church don't live in the same district. That means we need you to bring in several of the council members now and maybe bring in a few more later. And let's get to know who these people are and also know where they live. And when I say know where they live, you don't need to know their house address, okay? That is not necessary. You can simply know something as simple as Cypress Point. My council member lives in Cypress Point. That's enough to know, because now you know that, oh, they're 5 minutes from where I live. So I expect them to be more of an advocate for me as it pertains to the Baker Road corridor. I expect them to be more of an advocate for me as it pertains to Burton Station, L&J Gardens, Newsom Farms, or any of those neighborhoods, Campus East, Lake Edwards. I want them to be more of an advocate because they're living right around the corner from where I live. We want to make sure that you're comfortable in doing this. So how do we make that happen? I am more than willing to go before any of the, to get invited to any of the churches or any of the organizations, be it your fraternities, sororities, your Masonics, any of those groups. I will be more than happy to come and share information with regards to how do we operate in this system. How do we reach out to our elected officials and begin to move the ball forward? Because it does us no good if we're going to sit at home and be complacent. The whole point of being able to elect people of your choice is that our citizenry began to get more involved. It's critical. It is important. And it determines the outcome that we receive. One of the things that I hear from people all the time is housing. Housing has been extremely difficult to find. It's extremely expensive. Well, now that we've elected new people to council, let's push and leverage these people to do something about all of this expensive housing. Housing should not be this expensive in the city of Virginia Beach. It is not a major city. It's a nice sized city. It has a lot of amenities, but it is not a major city. When people look on the map of places to go and visit, it's Miami, it's LA, it's Chicago or Atlanta. It is not Virginia Beach. It's Houston, Texas, or Dallas, Texas. Those are major cities. Virginia Beach is not a major city. It is a good city. It's a growing city, but it is not a major city. So therefore, why does it have major prices on housing when it is not a major city? That's the question. And you need to ask your representative that type of question, because guess what? You can ask them those questions now because they're not walking around the whole entire city and almost never in their district. So you need to call them in, have these conversations with them, and let's see if we can't make some serious changes in the city of Virginia Beach. You need to know what your concerns are. Are you concerns about the school that your children are in? Then contact your local school board member, because guess what? When the city council change, the school board is parallel to the city council. One member, one district. So you want to make sure that you ask those questions of your school board members. And if you didn't get to elect the ones that you wanted, and you may have ended up with a lot of members from this student first group that put money into the race and pushed to get a group of people on council that sound a whole lot like a lot of the people on the national level who just throws out anything and everything, who makes a lot of statements that's misinformation, disinformation, and misinform the public. Yes, they're there. But in 2 years, you get to have an election again. And those people that weren't up this time will be up the next time around. And guess what? That's your opportunity. You want to get started right now. And if they've elected a number of people on the council, on the school board, then remove the ones that are up there right now that are not in your best interest in 2 years. And then get rid of the other guys 2 years later. It's a process. Elections is a process. And I want you to know that for the first time, you have some control over this process. You have some real control over this process. You have some real control over what policies are implemented. You have real control over being able to make serious changes here in the city of Virginia Beach. Now, the city of Virginia Beach, I'm going to give you a little bit of information, a little education, has a budget of approximately $2.5 billion.
Hey.
Did that rock you for a minute? $2.5 billion. Okay. Well, with that money, they spend it on all types of things. I just went through, just looked at a few things they put money toward. Almost 50% of the $2.5 billion does go to the school system. And while we have to look at city council, we also have to look at the school board and what the school board is doing. Is the school board doing the things that are in the best interest of our children? And if they're not, you need to be equally as hard on the school board elected members as you are on the elected city council members, because the real fight has just begun. The real fight in making sure that we have fairness in all aspects of our lives, in all aspects of the city, the real fight has just begun. It's just begun when we elected a new school board, a new city council. Okay, so let's take a look at some of this money. I just pulled out a few. I didn't pull out a whole bunch of them, but just a few. The city gave $50,000 for Sunrise, SONRISE, Christian Music Festival. That takes place apparently in September of every year. $50,000. They also gave $50,000 for a one-time grant to what they called an Urban Renewal Center or Impact Youth Art Programs. This is a 15-week course. It has 15 weeks courses in dance, theater, and boating. I just kind of sat there and I was like, do any of my cousins go boating? Do they do a whole lot of theater? Do they? So Impact Youth Arts Program. Now they may do dance, but I don't know what type of dance they're doing at this Impact Arts Youth Program. I don't know.
Right.
What dances are they doing? What dances are they being taught at this program? So they called it urban renewal, but is it really in your community? Is it really down your block?
Don't sound urban to me. They put that label on in the front. People don't understand. Words have power.
Absolutely. And so it's very, very, very important that you take a look at the budget. It's real easy to find. You go to vbgov.com. Mm-hmm. I mean, look at me. Mm-hmm. I've done this so many times.
Right.
Yes, vbgov.com. And just take a look at what they're spending money on. And if you can't find it, Google City of Virginia Beach. Okay. Google it. And then Google, once you get inside and go to the search bar, search for 2022-2023 city budget. And then just scan through it and just take a look at how the money is being spent. Take a look at the millions of dollars that come in from the federal government, the state government, and then take a look at where that money is being allocated. Because you have a representative now. You have a true representative. And it is your responsibility to hold your representative accountable. Look at your city. Look at your neighborhood. Do you find that when it's time for a CIP project or a transportation project or infrastructure project, somehow your neighborhood never receives a paved road or that sidewalk that you've asked for years and years? Well, you have representation now. Call your local city council member and say, we've been waiting for a while for that sidewalk. Now that you are our representative, we need to see you work to ensure that we get the sidewalk. And remind them, we understand you have to collaborate. Always say that to them because they want to think that you don't know anything. But when you use words like collaborate, working together, teamwork, when you use that type of terminology, it changes the message because they feel like you've done some homework. So think about some of the definitive changes you'd like to see in the city of Virginia Beach. I mentioned housing because that is very important. I also mentioned the roads. That's very important. If we receive infrastructure money from the federal government, help me to understand why we haven't seen the highway going to the oceanfront, 264, getting any repairs or paving or anything. It's been like that for years. For years. They took the tolls off the toll road, a lousy 10 cents, a lousy 25 cents, and they had a fit. Screamed and yelled and said, we shouldn't be paying 10 cents to ride on that toll road. So they took the toll off. Here it is 20, 30 years later. And guess what? Haven't seen any real work done on the 264 to Oceanfront Road. We haven't seen it be paved. Now we've seen some new changes at the interchanges at Newtown and Witch Duck Road, and we've seen that go on. But in terms of paving the highway from Witch Duck Road all the way to the ocean front, we haven't seen that. So now that we have council members, we need to have that conversation with them so they can put that on a list of items that they send to our state legislature, because all of these processes work now, to send to our state legislator and say that we want Virginia Beach to be at the top of the list when it comes to fixing our roads. We want them moved up. The other thing that I have noticed over the years is they have some roads that they pave over and over again, while the rest of the city remains unpaved. I remember when Dam Neck Road was first built, first laid, I should say. And every time I'd go down to the country, it seemed like they were paving Dam Neck again. One of two things. They either hired a lousy contractor and they should have fired him, or they felt that the people that lived off of Dam Neck Road was far more important than anybody else in the city. Okay. They either felt that those people were far more important than the rest of the city, so they continued to pave Dam Neck Road over and over again, while the other areas in the city didn't seem to have any pavers come through, or the contractor that they used to pave Dam Neck Road didn't know what they were doing. And if that was the case, why did they keep the contractor?
Yeah.
So here again, that's part of our budget. That's how our money is spent. Another thing they did is they spent $8,646, and this was a one-time grant for Great Neck Athletic Association football program. They said it was an all-volunteer organization affiliated with Parks and Recreation. Great Neck, if I recall correctly, that is one of the more upscale places. The residents seem to have quite a bit of money. There's Allenton off of Great Neck. There's a number of communities. Also, off of Great Neck Road, if you go over the bridge, you'll see all these people with oceanfront properties. And actually, many of them have their own private boat and their own private dock. You think Great Neck people might be able to afford $8,000 to take care of that without it coming out of the city budget? And perhaps maybe that $8,000 could perhaps go into another community that could use the money a little bit more. So here again, elections have consequences, and we need you to get involved. And while I'm talking to people in the city of Virginia Beach, because this is where I live, anything that I share, think about it for a moment. How can you use that in whatever city or neighborhood or wherever you live? How can you use that with the election that you just had and the people that were just elected? How can you take the information I provided and make it work in your city, make it work in your county, make it work in your neighborhood or your community? Because that's going to be the critical piece. The critical piece is that we're doing this all over the nation, that we're not just doing this in Virginia Beach, that we're not just holding people accountable in Virginia Beach, but that we are making sure that we hold people accountable everywhere we go. One thing is going to be very, very important is who we elected to office. And I always like to use, I want people who are principled and I want them accountable. Because over the years, we've elected all types of folks on all different levels. And I believe we may have elected a few here in Virginia Beach this time around, especially again on school board. The type of people who um, suggest to people a lot of things that are not true. It's going to be critically important that we call them out as citizens and that we hold them accountable. And it doesn't hurt to call for their resignation week in and week out. Week in and week out, our mothers, fathers, children should be at those school board meetings. And when you're given information that you know is not true, when you're given information that is to scare you, intimidate you, or to make you feel as if everything that you're doing is wrong and everything they're saying is right, it is your responsibility to go before that microphone and let them know what your concerns are. And then if you have to, get a recall petition together and recall them from school board. Recall them. Keep in mind, they work for you. As I said, now the real work begins. Election is a one-time event on a particular day, but the work continues all year long. And we don't ever want you to forget that. We want to get out of this habit of, I voted, I did my job, I'm done. We need you to get out of that mindset, out of that habit, and get in the habit of recognizing that elections can be transformative. But they're only transformative, I won't say only, but they're transformative in several ways. One, if election officials feel like they have so much power that they're just going to do anything they want to do and disregard the citizens and what we care about and what we believe in. Or it can be transformative if the citizenry decide that these people are not doing the things that we would have them to do. And therefore, we form our coalitions and we remove them from office. But keep in mind, just removing somebody from office so they can put in a like-minded person, you didn't do your job. You must remove them from office and replace them with a better candidate and a better representative. So the power is still in our hands. We just need to know how to use that power and make sure that power works on our behalf. Henderson, you want to share? Because I know you're excited about the election.
Yeah, yeah. It's good that, y'all did, vetted the people and got the right people in position. And it's important because young people can now be able to come down to city council and see more than one Afro-American on the platform. And, if they got concerns, they can justify coming to city council now. It's important. I mean, we teach everything else in school, but how come the schools haven't taught the young people or bus the young people down to city council to a meeting so they can get to understand, this is where the power is, because there ain't no power in a gun.
Absolutely.
Knowledge is power. So when we are dealing with all the things in our community that are negative, there's so many things positive that's on the table, but you want to shy away when it comes to our community because we ain't got no boat, and only thing we know is twerking. So ballet, when are you teaching it, and how? You're waiting until they get to middle school or high school, mostly high school, I think, because middle school, they don't do it. So it's a lot of things that the school board and the city council, can be, doing things now and having young people to come give them an opportunity in our community.
Right.
To be able to come down to city council. And speak.
Absolutely. And we want our kids to be more involved. We want our parents to be more involved. I know that going to council meetings, I can remember it took me a minute to even speak before council and all, because it wasn't the way I was raised. And keep in mind, the persons, my parents who raised me, it wasn't the way they were raised either. Right. So therefore, they could pass on the knowledge that they had, and only that knowledge. They couldn't pass on knowledge that they did not have. So now that we are in a different situation, now that we've been actively involved, Henderson and I have both been actively involved in going before council or calling council members or speaking with the mayor on numerous occasions. I can share that information with my children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, great-great-great-grandchildren, however many generations. And whether I share it now or whether it's on video or whether it's on a whatever downloadable information that our young people have, because social media has so much on each and every one of us, there's always a way that we can continue to share this information over and over and over again, so that our young people are well aware of what they can do. And so we have an excellent opportunity to transform the city of Virginia Beach in a positive way. I know a lot of people were like, well, if we have a lot of Black people on city council, then they're just going to only vote for things for Black people. No, we're going to vote for what is in the best interest of the city, including what is in the best interest of Black people. Unfortunately, we cannot say the same about America over the years. Did they vote in the best interest of one group, or did they vote in the best interest of the collective? I can't say that they did. But I do know, as a Black person myself, that the goal is to stop a lot of the waste in our city governments, in our local and state and federal government. And I believe that can be done. I believe that we can do better than what has been taking place over the last 200, 300, 400 years with the same people, the similar mindset, and supposedly all of this experience. If you have this much experience over this many generations, over this many years, tell me why nothing ever seemed to get fixed. So I'm looking for fixers on our city council. I'm looking for fixers on our school board. And I hope around the nation, others are like myself, looking for people to fix things and not just sit there for 2 years or 4 years and complain. I hear the national noise all the time. The young lady that just recently got elected to office, that I do intend to have her come on the show. And her whole message pretty much was she didn't want the current person to stay in office because inflation took place. Well, anybody that knows anything about how finances work, they know that there are leading indicators and there are lagging indicators. Therefore, if the COVID hit in 2019 and 2020, we were dealing with COVID for 2 years. All of the things that took place regarding supply chain issues, all of those things led up. Those were indicators that led up to the lagging in other areas. So all those indicators led up to an increase in the cost of goods and services. Why? Because the supply chain slowed a lot of the products and services down, therefore creating all of the things that are, not all, but many of the things that are taking place. Those were lagging indicators that now are being front and center in your face. In your face, okay? And so if you're not knowledgeable about these things, then you will actually believe that it's because of the various things that are being done that created this. No, it were the things that took place prior to that began to create these various outcomes because of the fact that no one jumped on COVID when it first happened. So, since no one jumped on it to try to resolve the issue, it kept festering. And if anything festers, we all know that if we cut our finger and we don't do anything about it, then pretty soon it becomes worse. Well, when this occurred in 2019 and it continued in 2020, all of those things ultimately created the situation that we have today. Now, I don't recall any real solutions throughout the campaign. No real solutions. I heard noise about this is not right and this is not right, but I didn't hear any solutions. I haven't heard any around the country with any of the candidates who were not a part of the governing body at the time, or was not the part of the majority. So there's this terminology, majority, minority, minority, as a mechanism to say that, well, you have the House and you have the Senate, so it's all your fault. Well, if you haven't put anything on the table to make any type of positive changes, and all you've done for years is say no, 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 but you haven't put one policy on the table, and whenever the other side put policies on the table, you say, well, we want to work with you. You get them to change a lot of the things in your favor, and then you walk away and you still don't vote for the policy. And then you turn around and you say, well, it's because of you guys, but your stuff was in the bill. The changes was made in the bill because you asked for these changes, and the bill ultimately passed with the changes that you requested. So how can it be the majority fault if your items are in the bill? How can it only be one side fault if the things you requested was actually accepted and put in the bill? Now, should the other side run and remind the people that, hey, this is what the original bill looked like by the time we made all the changes and implemented all the things that the other side said they wanted? This is what the bill ultimately looked like. This is why it cost this much and didn't, instead of costing this amount. Did they make the case? No, they did not. But we also have a responsibility to educate ourselves with regards to how policy works. We have a responsibility to educate ourselves with regards to how bills are written, how changes are made, how amendments are done, and how they ultimately pass one house and then ultimately pass the other house. But in most instances, both parties have input in the bills. It's not one party saying this is what we're going to do, that's it, period. They look to the other side to get their input. Now, if the other side decide they're not going to give any input at all, or if they decide that they want to give input and the majority accept the input that they gave, you can't let them off the hook and act as if you did something alone. You may have passed the bill alone because they said, I'm going to vote no on everything, even though I had my opportunity to give my ideas, give my input. You accepted those inputs. I'm still voting no. Then you really weren't trying to pass a bill in the first place. You really weren't trying to solve a problem in the first place. Again, elections don't end on November the 8th or whatever day it is The real work begins the day after election day, to call your congressman, to call your city council member, to call your state legislator, to call your school board members. That's the real work. And then when you go in, make sure you're definitive about what it is that you want, what it is that you want changed, what it is that you want to remain the same, what it is that you want to improve on, and then share with them what your suggestions are with regards to how to get these things done. You have a responsibility. It doesn't end at the voting booth. It's just a process. It is simply a process. Again, we're here in the city of Virginia Beach. This is GA for Justice. I'm always happy to come to you every Thursday just to share information. Hopefully, this information is beneficial to you. Hopefully, it will allow you to take a step back, talk with family and friends. And that's the thing that I want more than anything else. I want you to begin to talk to each other in a manner that is not a complaining manner, but in fact, in a manner that is more of a collaborative manner where you're looking at our city. You pull up the budget and you see how all of the money is spent, and you take one item, or you take 2, 3, 4, 5. It's up to you. But you and your team need to get more involved. And not only the team of adults and cohorts that you work with, but also your children. Because it is our responsibility right here and right now to teach our young people what they need to do. And I'll give you an example. I have been working, and I think I've talked about this on the show before. Next door to my church is a one-room schoolhouse. And of course, it was segregation at the time and had the pot-belly stove. Recess was outside, cold or warm, it was outside. And I did not get to go to the school. My older brother, I think 2 brothers and a sister, went to the school, but I did not get to go to that particular school. But it still stands today. And it's under, of course, the housing, not housing and urban, is under the historic landmarks and preservation. And so last night, they have an annual meeting for the public once a year. I attended last night to the meeting. I went to the meeting, I got to the meeting, and I walked in, and I was early. So there were a number of people already there. But as time went on, more and more people came. But almost no one looked like me. And these people were not the youngest people in the world. They were getting up in age. But what they were willing to do is give up their time to fight to preserve their history. And that history could have been a building. That history could have been a hotel. That history could have been almost anything. But they were willing to give up their time, serve on this particular board of preservation, and make sure that their history remained intact. Well, I was there to kind of observe, because I was also willing to make sure my history remained intact, that my schoolhouse that my brothers and sisters went to remained intact. And while I was there, I kind of looked around and, took a look at the room, took a look at who were there and all. And the interesting thing about this meeting is they had some young people that were there, and they were from high school. They may have been from Kellam or Catholic school, but they had to be, they could be a member of the committee, but they had to go to school, public or private, in the city of Virginia Beach. Well, every last one of those students did not look like me either. So therefore, what I'm sharing with you is to my community, because this is so critical. They have been working to preserve their history, and now they're teaching and training their children to do likewise. You want to pull up this committee, and that was the reason why I wanted to do the show today. Is one of the things that we need to do is go online to our local government and find out all the committees, the commissions, the boards, all of the different ones that are out there. And we want to make sure that we're represented on those boards. But wherever they have a youth who can serve on boards, we want to make sure that our children are serving on those boards and commissions so that they're learning about their city as they're growing, that they're involved in our city, that they're giving their input with regards to decisions that are being made. Elections are about decision making. Elections are about policy making. Elections are about how the money is being spent and where the money is being spent. And if we're going to have any real input, we must be at the table. We must be at the table. And I know that as a community who may not have been real actively involved for years, that sometimes you think that your life is too busy, you have too much on your plate, you got kids to raise, you're trying to get your education, you may have gotten married and decided to go back to school to get your college degrees or what have you. But it is critically important. If you can't do it right now, check with a brother, a sister, a cousin, a friend, or somebody whose plate might not be as full as yours, and let them get started. Let them share the information with you. And then when you're finished, you need to go out and do some of this work. You cannot be vacant from the table. It is important. It is imperative that we become more actively involved in our city government. And it's important that we get involved in our state government. There are also committees that individuals can serve on the state level as well. So this is not just city and local government. This is throughout, that there are areas where you can be on various committees and commissions. And it's critical. It is absolutely critical. Thank you, Stephanie. It is critical that we leverage our power, that we talk to each other. And then when you serve on these boards and commissions, how about sending a little snapshot of information out to the community? Send it out to your local NAACP or your fraternities and sororities, and then put a note at the bottom. Please share with other people that you know, because that is one of the ways that we can continue to educate ourselves, even though we may not be on the committee. If those of you who are on the committee will do a summary of what is going on in all around our city. There are housing boards. There is development boards. There are resort and hotel boards. There's zoning boards. There's planning commissions. All of these things affect our tax dollars. All of these things affect us personally. And if you're serving in any capacity, it behooves you to send a message out. And you don't have to send out everything that you heard, but do a synopsis, do bullet points, but get the information in the community. It may spark an interest. You may find out that your children hadn't thought about architect or development or design, and now they are interested in it. Your child may have not thought about archaeology. One of the things that they shared last night was the architect and designs of the older buildings and the changes that have been made over the decades, the differences that have taken place, how the building looked in the 1950s, the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s, and the different changes that have taken place. They also showed how they did archaeology discoveries, where they went in and they began to look underneath the surface, under the ground, to find any artifacts that might be out there. Your children, just knowing that, might change their ideas of what they want to do. So it's very important that we get more involved. I'm coming close to the end of the show, but I did just want to share with you how much elections matter. Thank you, Teresa. Thank you for listening. I hope that what we share with you, because we're not sharing the same thing that most shows share, I hope this is a benefit to you. And please feel free to share it with others, share this show with others, because just having a conversation for information, a conversation for correction, a conversation for transformation, hopefully will change the different outcomes that's going on in our community. Again, there were young people at the table, and guess what? They went to the microphone and gave a report. They weren't just at the table to listen, they were at the table and involved. And these were teenagers. Our children need to be in these type of various environments where they're getting this information, because it may change what they decide to major in. It may change how they feel about their city. It may change, and before you know it, they may come up with the next great idea. And they can't come up with these ideas unless we're giving them access and exposure. So again, this was a great week for us. It was a great week for Virginia Beach. We now have 4 elected African Americans to serve on our city council here in the city of Virginia Beach, of over almost 500,000 people, on a board, on a city council that has 11 members. So that is a large amount of people in a short period of time. Again, we want to thank everybody for voting. This is Georgia Allen, GA for Justice, every week trying to bring you some different information to transform your thinking and hopefully transform what takes place in the city of Virginia Beach. We thank you. And with that being said, we will see you next week.
All right. You've been listening and watching GA for Justice with your host, the former NAACP President Georgia Allen. Tune in next week from 12 until 1 right here on WVDM on the World Wide Web. We'll keep you posted of all activities and everything that's coming up in the near future. Until then, this has been GA for Justice with Georgia Allen. Bye-bye, y'all.